I got married, my husband and I, his name is Dean, and we got married in our 30s. And after we got married, we built a house. And after we built the house, I said, well, do you want to have kids? And he said, I don't care. You're the one that's got to do all the work. You want to have kids? Fine, have kids. I said, okay. So I went ahead and I got pregnant. And because I was now in my little later 30s, they wanted me to have all kinds of tests to make sure that the baby was okay. And I said, I'm not doing that. Forget it. So my doctor ordered more than the normal amount of ultrasounds, I guess, just to make sure the baby was growing okay. And one time I went in there and I said to the technician, do you know what I'm having? Is it a boy or a girl? And she said, you don't want to know. All right. It's sort of ominous, but okay, I don't want to know. And that was true. I didn't want to know. One of the biggest, last surprises you can have in the world. So I went home to my husband and I said, Dean, now, we should start thinking about what to name our child. And Dean said, okay, but because his last name is Skimmerhorn, he said, it has to be a short first name. So I said, okay, well, that kind of puts out names. I mean, it can't be Christopher or Catherine. It can't be Matthew. It can't be Sebastian. It can't be Elizabeth. It has to be a short name. So I said, okay, well, what about Lane for a boy? Well, no, he didn't like Lane. That was his brother's name. I liked all his family's names, amazingly enough. And Lee, no, he didn't like Lee. That was his other brother's name, and it was also my mother's name. He didn't want that. How about Dean? You've got a nice name. No, I didn't want that. I don't want a junior. All right, Drew, no, too new age or whatever. But we did settle on a girl's name. We decided Leah would be a good name for a girl. And I thought that was kind of interesting because that was sort of a nod to his brother and my mother. It's okay. So Leah. So if we fast forward, which didn't go very fast, it seemed, 9 months, and I go to the hospital to have my baby. And because I was so uptight and worried that I was going to have a cesarean section, sure enough, I had to have a cesarean section. So I come out of my recovery and go into the room, and I say to my husband, so how's it going? And he says, Paul's fine. And I said, who's Paul? And he said, Paul's our son. And I said, oh, really? And he said, don't worry, I already signed the birth certificate. I thought, okay, Paul, fine. Paul's our son. So I could live with that. So we go on. Paul grows up. He looks just like his father. And I'm so blessed. He turned out to be a wonderful kid. We only had one child, and he's a great young man now. And anyway, years went by, and he goes off to college. He's about 21 years now, and he goes off to college. And Dean and I go to a funeral, I think appropriately, after your only child goes off to college. So we go to the funeral. While we're there, Dean says to me, I'd like you to meet some people. I went to school, grew up with their children, and they meant a lot to me. And he said, the Greeners, I want you to meet them. I said, okay, fine. So trundle over to their Mr. and Mrs. Greener, and this is Mrs. Greener, and this is Paul Greener. Our son Paul is named after Mr. Greener. I said, what? And poor Mr. Greener. What? Our son's named after Mr. Greener? I didn't know this. I've never met, it's been 21 years. I've never met this guy before. I'm sure the Greeners were really glad to exit the area, and I think my husband was really glad to move me behind some gravestones or something. So I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking, all right, Paul named after Mr. Greener, but what does the name Paul mean to me? And I thought, well, Paul was the name of the first boy that ever really had a crush on me when I was in junior high school. And he used to come over to our house every night at dinner time, go down into our basement and play the piano. I don't know what my parents thought about that, but I thought it was pretty nice, kind of serenading me. And then when I turned 18, I moved to New York City. And my boyfriend was a biker, and his name was Paul. And so this was like an exciting time in my life. And I have a cousin named Paul Lee, actually, and he lives in Watertown. And he's an artist, and I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and he was kind of like a big brother to me. So Paul, means a lot to me, that name. Our son Paul, as I had said to you, looks exactly like his father almost. And people comment all the time on the fact that, Paul looks just like you, Dean, and Dean likes to say, oh, and yes, and we're not really sure who the mother is. Wait, okay. Well, we can be reasonably sure that I think who the father is. But when it comes to the father of the name of our son Paul, do we really know?